What's going on guys, Reisshub back with another video, and in this video I'm going to be going through Nick A30's games from the FNCS Opens. I streamed some of the research I did from this over on Twitch, and I got a few questions of people asking, why are you VOD reviewing Nick A30? There's two reasons for this. Firstly, he came around 4,000 on day 1 and I think 5,000 on day 2, which is definitely similar to what a lot of the placements that you guys will be having in your open tournaments as well. A lot of the mistakes he made were really common mistakes that I'm sure, again, you guys are making too. So I've summarized these into 4 main mistakes that Nick made and that you can apply and fix in your own gameplay too. And secondly, on top of that, Nick has been supporting my content since the start, watching on a stream, and really helped me get some popularity when I just started making videos. So I want to say thank you and give him a little present and some tips on his own gameplay. So thank you so much for all the help. So the first mistake that Nick made was not planning his rotations ahead of time. Wherever you drop on the map, it doesn't really matter, but you need to be planning for the different first zone locations that you can have. If you get a first zone that's the complete max distance from where you drop, you need to have a plan in advance on how you're going to get your materials, what loot you're going to do, when you're going to rotate, and most importantly, which path you're going to rotate on when you do go that way. For example, on the first day, Nick dropped in Holly Hedges. If the first zone was to be in the top northeast, I would like to have seen Nick already have a plan of action on his exact rotation path of how he was going to get there. Similarly, if it went to the southeast, and again this is a really far zone for him, I like to see him already know where he's going to rotate along the map and where he would like to position himself in that second zone. So talking about positioning, where would we like to position ourselves in the second and third zones? Well, for the second zone, for example, I noticed that Nick was consistently staying in Holly Hedges to ensure that he could farm up maximum materials and stay on the edge of second. Nick said that this was because when he tried to go center of second, he often got dinked and damaged for much more, wasting more shields and more materials that way. So he preferred to stay on the edge. Now, playing the edge of second zone is actually very valuable and something that you'll see a lot of pro players do who aren't kind of near the center of the map already. But the one caveat to this is that typically when you're going to be doing an edge zone on the second, you also want to ensure that you are on the dead side of the zone. For the particular game in the background here, you can see that the dead side of the zone was actually the south side, and he was staying near the west side of the zone here. Even in the situation where the third zone had pulled to the complete north and Nick had previously moved to the very south side of the second zone, this would still be a relatively easy rotate for him because there's not as many people around him. Then, once he's in the third zone, he really should be aiming to get in the center. A lot of the times he prioritized kind of being in a POI, such as this game where you can see him down in Misty Meadows, which was good because he'd rotated to the south side of the previous zone, avoiding a lot of players, which I really liked. However, he got in Misty Meadows, which had a huge amount of players in it. He then managed to make it to fourth zone relatively easy, but if he was already centered in the third zone on a little bit of a high ground layer, this would have made this next rotate completely free for him. So overall, just ensuring that you're planning where you're going to be on the second, third, fourth, and fifth zones is going to be really, really important in every single match and something you should plan out well in advance. So let's talk materials. Nick says that people in his chat always complain that he wastes materials. However, just in the 7 games I watched, I don't really feel that this was the main issue with his materials. The main issue I saw goes back to what we just mentioned, which was planning of your rotations. The patch that this was played on had no cars in it, so it was pretty difficult to get metal when you leave your POI. Now, a lot of times Nick prioritized getting the metal there, which was great, and something that you guys should do in your early game too is ensure that you have got as much metal as possible so that you don't have to harvest it on your rotation path later on, because oftentimes there's not many spaces you can do this. The issue that I saw was with his wood and his brick. So from an efficiency perspective, he always ensured that he harvested full brick and full wood before he left his POI. If he was on the dead side of the zone, that would be fine, because he could just harvest this up while he waited to find out where the third zone was. However, when the zone was far away, he often spent time harvesting in his POI instead of finding a looting path that has materials on it that he can harvest from there. For example, if he was to rotate down the south side of the map, there's a huge amount of wood and brick just to the north of Slurpee here, which he could have easily harvested at this point rather than doing it in his early game. This would have allowed him to rotate earlier and get himself in a better position for the later games. So I'm not saying don't harvest in your early game, that's 100% not what I'm trying to say, but what you should be doing is you should be prioritizing your metal in the early game and then not using it throughout the mid game as much as possible. Getting enough wood and brick from your POI, maybe 200-300, and then planning out where you can get the rest of it on your rotate. The only exception to this is if you land a drop that has a huge amount of really fast harvesting brick. For example, a place that has a lot of these large bricks around and you can easily get 500 there, obviously just harvest that. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of the brick in Holly Hedges is pretty slow harvesting. So one of the biggest issues I see that Nick has is just consistently just spraying at a build piece. Now I know he does this because he's on 40 ping, however he can definitely still take walls on this ping. An alternative I would say is just while you're at your distance, you can continually spray with your AR or SMG to pressure the opponent so that they can't heal. But at the same time, you should be moving closer to the opponent, closer to their wall, and in an attempt to try and take their wall at the same time as spraying, so taking it with your weapon instead of your pickaxe. Again, if you're on higher ping, they may be able just to hold their wall and keep it. So this is where you should be attacking from multiple different angles, continually weakening their build pieces as you go. You may just shoot or pickaxe one of their walls once to weaken it, then go to another angle, hit that again, expect them to edit. Be really unpredictable here and just kind of keep a good flow and continuous pressure on the opponent so they have no idea what you're doing. This will make it much easier for you to nab a wall, get an edit in, get a build piece, maybe a cone or a ramp in their box, and get the elimination this way. This bad muscle memory and patterns just for spraying at walls also becomes prevalent in Nick's endgame, where he just continually tries to spray a wall to get into a build piece, when in reality he's not going to be able just to phase through the wall just by spraying it with his SMG. At this point, he should be trying to take the build piece with his weapon and replace it, or using a ramp over his head to phase into the box or out of the position that he's currently in. You're not going to be able to phase through a wall just by running at it and spraying at it. And this is actually something we see really commonly in the endgame because players panic, because this is the muscle memory they have built up. So yes, consistently spray and build pieces to pressure the opponents, however don't have that as one of your only methods to try and take walls. Continually pressure them, get to different angles, weaken different build pieces of yours, and be unpredictable. This will allow you to take more build pieces from your opponents and make you an all-round better fighter. The final mistake on here is not knowing when to use your own mobility. So yes, Nick, I'm going to be showing the worst death that you had to everyone and point out exactly why you died. So yeah, let's look at this death in the background here and let's see exactly what's wrong with it. Nick gets an almost max distance 5th zone from where he is currently. And at this point, he should recognize that he is in a POI, which is Misty Meadows, and there's going to be a lot of players in here. So also should be pretty easy for him to scout based on his positioning to see that there's not that many people in the zone. This means that a large amount of the people that are alive currently are all going to need to rotate to get into that 5th zone. This means that because there's no one in front of him, if he rotates first, chances are he's going to get shot by a lot of the people who are currently going behind him. And if you notice his inventory right now, he has max crash pads and a launch pad, plus really good materials. So this game is really set up to do well in the end game. So in this specific situation, what I would have liked to have seen him do is to use 2 crash pads, maybe 1, just to get into the 5th zone, and do that as the zone starts to push him. The reason for this is that's when the most players are going to be rotating into the zone, and he can easily just sit and crash pad and crash pad and crash pad to get into the zone, be safe. This way he'll use probably 2 crash pads, but save so many materials and not rotate by foot. So again, since there's not that many people in zone at this point and everyone else is going to be rotating, he's going to be pretty free just to crash pad and not be held by the people that are already there. Simply knowing when to use his mobility and just using these 2 crash pads at this point could have set him up for at least a top 5 finish in this game, because he would have launch padded into the first moving zones and then been able to use the remainder of his crash pads and material to get him through the remainder of the moving zones, getting him a really good finish here. And this one mistake alone probably stopped him from qualifying for the semi-finals of this tournament. Hope you guys enjoyed that video and learned a lot. I do plan on doing more VOD reviews on players who are not winning tournaments because, again, a lot of the mistakes are very applicable to people who are just trying to get better and trying to qualify for those second round, be it the semis or the finals, whatever it is. So hope you guys learned a lot and enjoyed. I will catch you all later. Have a good one. Peace!